The text 19, Prabhu?
It's 20.
20.
Sadhu Sangashika.
Could it really be?
Have a seat, by the way. Exactly. Should be closer. I'll just start.
Okay.
Set it up. You know the song, Roy?
Yes.
Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari.
Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari.
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari.
Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana
Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana.
Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatiramachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari
Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari
Madhava Punjabi Hari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari.
Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samveda Bhakti Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled
Hare
devotees.
Krishna.
Okay, turn down the volume. Volume can go down, and make sure all the effects are off. Please, thank you. And this is actual maximum thing,
Need more?
Well, this is not good, but I guess it'll be okay if that's...
Giant knot.
All right, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No one will walk over here. We hope. Let's put this over here. Hare Krishna. That's pretty good. Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. We can close that door unless Maharaj comes, and we can open it a little bit, okay? I'm going to start the other one because I forgot something. Narayam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of August 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are still in Canto 3 entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service, text number 20. Pasangamajanam pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva sadhu shukato Mokshadvadhamapavatam Pasangam majanam pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva sadhu shukato Mokshadvadhamapavatam Pasangamajanam pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva sadhu shukato Mokshadvadhamapavatam. Damodar, you want to give it a shot? Pasangamajanam pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva sadhu shukato Mokshadvadhamapavatam. Ryan. Pasangam majaram pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva sadhu shukato Mokshadvadhamapavatam. Zach. Pasangamajaram pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva sadhu shukato Mokshadvadhamapavatam. Roy. Pasangam majaram pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva Sadhushukato Mokshadvaram Pavratam. You want to give it a shot? Life? Prasangam ajadam pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu Saeva Sadhushukato Mokshadvaram Pavatam. Is that the first time you chanted? Yeah, not bad for the first time. Previous life was coming out, for sure. That's why your name is Life. Okay. So synonyms. Prasangam. Attachment. Ajadam. Strong. Pasham. Entanglement. Atmanaha. Of the soul. Kavayaha. Learned men. Viduhu. No. Sa eva. That same. Sadhushu. To the devotees. Kritaha. Applied. Moksha dwaram. The door of liberation. Apavritam. Opened. Translation. Okay, hold on. Translation. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens up the door of liberation. In the poetic version. Mundane affection keeps us tied to birth and death, infernal. But love for sadhus opens wide the doors to life eternal. Hare Krishna. Purport, Srila Prabhupada's purport. Here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditioned life, and the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed, it has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness, and attachment for Krishna or his devotee is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. A living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditioned state, but the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. Here it is recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees or sadhus. And who is a sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or long beard. A sadhu is described in the Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service. Even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service, if one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. Sadhu eva samantavya. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirmed this. Lava matra sadhu sange sarva siddhi hoy. Simply by a moment's association with the sadhu, one can attain perfection. Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee is Dwaram Ahu Vimukte, the royal road of liberation. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahu Vimuktes Tomo Dwaram Yoshitang Sangi Sangam. Rendering service to the materialists, that's from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, text 2. Rendering service to the materialists has the opposite effect. If anyone offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then by association with such a person, the door to hell is opened. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord, because if one associates with a sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, a worshipper, and a sincere servitor of the Lord. These are the gifts of a sadhu. If we want to associate with a sadhu, we cannot expect him to give us instructions on how to improve our material condition. But he will give us instructions on how to cut the knot of the contamination of material attraction, and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. That is a result of associating with a sadhu. Kapila Muni first of all instructs that the path of liberation begins with such association. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this is the first verse of what I have perhaps arrogantly dubbed as the Sadhu Sangashtaka. 8 verses about the importance and glories of association with devotees or sadhus. And in this first verse, he starts out with the word prasangam, and this word will appear again, and appears in several other places in the Bhagavatam. So sangha has 2 meanings. It means attachment, and it means association. And it's not an accident that they have those 2 meanings, because by association we develop our attachment. If you hang out with people who are into baseball, chances are you'll start to be curious about what baseball is. You may get attached to it. So, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. This is in the 2nd chapter. According to your association, you develop your desires. So, here is describing that ordinary association and attachment is compared here to very powerful ropes that keep us bound to this world. When you look you introspect a little bit and you see, you have a whole array of desires. Everybody has like that. As a normal male growing up at a certain time, the sex desire develops. It's not unnatural. It develops. So that's a very big thing that happens, but there's so many others. You desire money, this, that, my favorite color, there's a million different things. So all of that develops due to the contact of the senses with the sense objects and the consciousness. And according to what family you're born into, what nation you're born into, there's a certain kind of food that's common that you become attached to, and like that. It's all these different attachments. So if there's no contact with sadhus or with Krishna consciousness, those attachments, some of them grow, some of them are set aside at a certain point, and we should know that the flip side of such attachment is also repulsion. As there is attachment and love, there's also repulsion and fear, and all of these different things develop because of our environment. So here, Kapila Muni, Lord Kapila Dev, who we understand as an incarnation of Krishna, he's Krishna himself, but in a certain different form. He's teaching his mother, and he says that for the soul, we're talking about the soul, the spirit soul within the body, the learned Kavya, they know that same attachment has to be purified, it has to be transferred. And the first way of transference, ultimately, as Prabhupada explains, to Krishna. But the original transference is to the sadhus, to those who are Krishna conscious, who are devotees. So that's what sadhu sangha is all about, the famous satsang. Right? Is somehow you associate with those who are already devotees, and you pick up the mood, you learn so much, and gradually your attachment is transferred. So what's the benefit of that transference? Moksha dvaram apavatam. Now moksha is liberation. Now that's a very good preliminary goal for every living entity, because that's really the great treasure of being a human being, is that we can get moksha. The lower animals, they're also souls, just as much as we are, but they're more covered by matter, by material energy. They can't understand any of this language. If a bug like the fly is coming around, he doesn't know anything. He's hearing the same sound, but it doesn't mean anything. He's just thinking, where is something to eat or whatever, you know what I mean, right? It's still a living entity, but much more rudimentary and covered consciousness. So this is all of this instruction is obviously for human beings. So what is the basic problem that we have? Well, we have 4 basic problems. Believe me, I know. Getting old is a big problem. You don't want to, but you do. I'm going to be 70 this year. Okay, I'm old. Well, I'm fortunate. I'm still in pretty good health. But after a while, there's so many things you can't do. You can't see as well, this and that. It's disappointing. But then it gets, along with the old age, as it really gets going, comes disease. And who can deny it? We try to deny it, but it's a fact of life. So that's a big problem. And then there's the big one that we really want to deny, and that's death. And every human being is going to face that, without fail. Now, we should ask, is there any solution to this problem? I mean, it's not a question of better health care. That may postpone the disease a little bit, but eventually it's all going to come, and death is definitely going to come. So on the material plane, there are no solutions to these problems. But on the spiritual plane, on the plane of yoga, that's the first benefit that you could get, is moksha. Not the ultimate benefit, but this is the benefit of associating with sadhus and chanting the holy name. When you chant Hare Krishna, you're associating with Krishna in sound form. This is an inconceivable thing, that God is there in His name. And by chanting, you can, if you hear nicely and you chant, then you can feel the effect, the pacifying effect, the blissful effect, so many effects. And it's just the hint of the first effect. So here the same idea is there. Moksha dvaram, so it's compared to opening a door. These doors are completely closed for the materialist. But this door to liberation opens, it says a bhagavatam becomes uncovered by associating with the sadhus. At transferring your affection, your desire, your association to the sadhus. Now in this purport, Prabhu, this is the science, is that we're attached. When you introspect a little bit, you say, yeah, I've got all these attachments. And some of them are giving me a real problem. We can experience, like for drugs, if you get in the grip of some drug, like methamphetamine, heroin or something, cocaine, it's an addiction. You certainly didn't start out taking the drug to become addicted, right? You thought it would improve your life, at least temporarily, whatever. But then you find, just to feel somewhat normal, you have to take it. Otherwise, there's all this pain. So, all of our attachments can be compared to that, even the ones that we may call wholesome on the material side, because the desire for it keeps coming up, just like. At one point, like practically every kid, I really liked chocolate. If I had a choice between a vanilla and chocolate, I would always take the chocolate. Sorry. All right, you couldn't say I was a chocolate addict, but I had a strong desire for chocolate. Whenever the chance would come up, I would eat chocolate. So, okay, well, that seems harmless enough. But as you go on in life, and you continue eating chocolate, then what happens at the time of death? This is a science in Bhagavad Gita. All those material desires, they form the template of your next birth. Krishna describes that. When the body breaks down eventually, the living entity never dies. We're eternal. So that's the first really good news in Krishna consciousness. You won't die. But the body dies. So it's like a paradox. Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's a little ditty I made up. So the idea is you don't die, but your body dies, and then so what determines what kind of body you're going to get? The whole character of your consciousness. What's in your mind? What's the most prominent thought? And all of those desires. Now, there's also the question of karma. If you've done vicious things in your life, you'll pay for that also. But just to stick with the desire. So, okay, I want chocolate. I still have that desire. I just left my body. Okay, you get another body, a little child's body, and grow up, and you'll have a chance to eat chocolate. But you don't get liberation. Then you have to go again through the old age, disease, and death, and then again through this is called the cycle of birth and death, samsara. That's what we want liberation from. So that's what's being described here. Now Prabhupada says here that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage, and the same attachment when applied to something else opens the doors of liberation. So really Krishna consciousness is a question of purifying our consciousness and transferring our attachments from matter to spirit, from matter to Krishna, ultimately to Krishna. So that's what's being described here. So he makes a point, because there's certain transcendentalists and yogis who try to kill attachment, who think, well, attachment is the enemy, so therefore we have to become unattached. And to that degree, with that philosophy, they perform severe austerities, meaning that you can't see anything attractive. You don't want to see some, like here, this is the last place, probably in the United States, one of the few last places, that you would set up a brahmachari ashram. Three blocks from a Southern California beach, just walking on the street, you're going to see all kinds of half-clothed ladies and things like that. Well, let's go to the Himalayas. We don't want to see that. And we'll go off the monastery, close the doors, and never come out. But Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even here, even though we're seeing all these things, we can ward off the attachment and attraction that would naturally develop, because we've developed a certain amount of attraction for Krishna. If you're chanting Hare Krishna, I like to give the example of Harinam. Have you ever seen us dancing on the street live? No. You never saw that?
You guys?
Yeah, like the Harinam parties?
Not yet.
Okay. So this is one of our main things that we do, although we don't do it so much here, but we occasionally. We just had a big festival in LA where over 1,000 devotees came from all over, and we chanted on Venice Beach, big public chanting. So it includes everything. It's not just sitting and chanting, which is great. This is japa, but it's also dancing, and chanting the musical instruments. We've seen the drums and everything. So it's totally encompassing meditation. Now Venice Beach is also, full of the modes of passion and ignorance. And, as we go down the beach, you see people hanging out the windows watching, And it's summertime, it's August, so they're scantily clad ladies and everything. But no, I don't think anybody, feels any lust, you chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So this is proof, really, that Krishna is all attractive. And he can take our mind away from these things. And all of the other subsidiary, like I don't want any chocolate anymore. I don't want chocolate. Prabhupada, some devotees eat chocolate, okay. But Prabhupada wrote a letter, he said, no, you can eat chocolate if it's offerable, but it's not offerable because it has this chemical in it.
There's also a purport somewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I forgot, I should have noted where, but it says under the 4 regs, no intoxicants or artificial stimulants.
Oh.
Someone might argue that chocolate's not an intoxicant, but you can't really argue it's not.
Yes, it's known for that, right? That's a little. Anyway, so that desire is gone now. I was into chocolate, but it's gone, and with so many others, but it's been replaced. I haven't repressed the desire. I've sublimated desire. That's a good word for us. But my desire for Krishna, I can come to the morning, see the beautiful deities, chant Hare Krishna, and do all these things. And there's always prasadam. Just like this morning, I didn't have chocolate, but I think I had carob. There's the carob ladus, Madhusudan makes. So that's the transference. So what's the benefit? The benefit is that you're paving your way to go back to Godhead and not take another material body. So so consciousness is the platform of attachment. So when we purify the consciousness, transfer it to Krishna and his devotees, then we open the door to liberation. You can't give up attachment. That's false platform. Now then the next question is, and this will be answered in subsequent verses, in this Sadhu Sangashtaka. Sadhu means 8 verses about sadhus. Who is the sadhu? Okay, I heard the first verse, and he's saying you have to transfer your attachment to the sadhu. Says, okay, where can I find them? What's their qualities? And so he'll describe that in the next few verses, which I won't get into. But Prabhupada, he quotes the Bhagavad Gita. Now, he usually quotes this first, because this is the one verse in the Bhagavad Gita where the word sadhu appears. Api chet suraracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhu eva samantavyak samyak bhavasito hisang. So in this verse, as Prabhupada refers to here, even if one is not following all the principles and his behavior is not perfect. But if he has unflinching faith in Krishna and he's acting for Krishna, then that he should be considered a sadhu. And in the next verse he says, and if he just continues doing that, all of the anomalies in the behavior will quickly be reconciled. And he'll come to the real pure platform. So the essential quality of a sadhu is bhajate mam ananya bhak, which means, Krishna speaking, he worships me with undeviating faith and attention. So that will come up in the next few verses. And other qualities that you can see, where do you find these qualities? He's tolerant, he's merciful, he's a friend to all living entities. He has no enmity toward anyone. Just imagine, we're living in an era now where it's all, oh my God, the neo-Nazis and Charlottesville and so much hate, so much violence. Just the opposite of sadhu. This means mode of passion and ignorance taking hold. The more that you see, people flashing up in anger and resentment and greed and all, this is the mode of ignorance, really. Violence is a mode of ignorance. So sadhu is just the opposite. Titikshava means tolerant. Someone may insult you to your face, even strike you. We have examples, because Jesus Christ is a great example of a sadhu. And he's revered for that quality. And why, not just being tolerant, but being compassionate. He was going everywhere trying to teach God consciousness, to save the people from suffering. That was he was right out of the Bhagavatam. So, and there are so many examples. Our own spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, it's a wonderful story. How he came to America in 65, he was actually 69 years old, not in the best of health. He didn't fly in an airplane. He came on a cargo ship, not even a cruise ship or anything. And 2 heart attacks on the way, And then he came over, he had no money. He had, 50 cents basically. And he had one contact. He was able to go here and for like months he was wandering on the streets in New York City, really not making any progress, Got robbed of everything. New York is a place where you always get robbed. I lived there. And then, after all of that austerity, Krishna blessed him with so much success. He finally found an audience that was receptive. He found people who were ready to chant Hare Krishna, and devotees became purified, and then he could leave them, and they were sustained, and he went to the West Coast. In the middle of Summer of Love, 1967, the legendary summer, right in the middle of it. And there's so many movies and pictures of him, in Golden Gate Park with thousands of hippies going around chanting Hare Krishna. And it just took off after that. So, but he showed the real quality of a sadhu. He did it all for us. He wasn't getting anything out of it. At that age, he'd want to retire. You don't want to travel and fly all over the world 12 times. So he perfectly exemplified all the qualities of a sadhu. So Prabhupada quotes that verse, and then he says, if you really want to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, attachment should be transferred to the sadhu. So Prabhupada gave his association, and the original devotees became attached to him. They didn't know much philosophy. There were hardly any books. Just the books he brought with him. We had no Gita at that time. But Prabhupada's own personality was so attractive because he was reflecting Krishna. See, this is the thing, is that Krishna is all attractive. And the way that he becomes most accessible to us is through the devotees themselves. And Srila Prabhupada was reflecting, Krishna's personality and his love and his mercy, and that itself was attractive. And so the devotees served him, basically by chanting Hare Krishna and studying his books and preaching. And so this is the movement and how it all works out. Now he quotes Lord Chaitanya, Lava matra sadhu sange sarva siddhi hoy. Sadhu sanga sarva shastra koi. Lava matra sadhu sange sarva siddhi hoy. So what could be more appropriate for the sadhu sangashtaka? So whenever you see repetition like that, this is a real emphasis. So sadhu sanga sarva shastra koi. All of the scriptures that we have glorify the association of sadhus. Even a moment's association can give one all perfection. Now, how is that? Now, obviously, a moment's association in itself needs to be buttressed or followed by some activity. Now, the activity means that it changes your consciousness so that a seed is planted. Now, a great example of this, it was more than a moment, but it was a little more than a few hours. Srila Prabhupada went to Moscow in 72, I think it was. And obviously there's no devotees there, you know. He thought he was going to get arrested and sent to Siberia when he went through the customs. They took one look at his Bhagavad Gita and they called the official, just like now, you know, if you have something, you know, they'll call you, they'll pat you down or something. So Prabhupada knew what was going on, and this is the Soviet Union, you know. It wasn't, I don't know if it was Stalin, I think it was Khrushchev by then, but still the same thing was going on. And so he says on the tape, I heard the lecture, he says, oh no, now they're going to arrest me, I'm finished, you know. A frail man, you know, 71 years old, 72 years old, traveling with one devotee, Shamasundar. So they took a look at the book, and it didn't, you know, there was nothing political about it or anything, and so I think it may have even been a Sanskrit Gita. So they let him in. So what to do? You know, he had no contacts there. So his aide, Shamasundar, would go shopping every day trying to find some vegetables to cook, you know. So he came across one fellow who was interested. I think maybe Shamasundar may have been dressed as a devotee. They had no other dress at that time. So this fellow's interest was piqued, and he invited him back to the apartment, and for like a whole day, or, you know, hours, and I think a day and a half, he just taught him Krishna Kai as much as he could take, and he loved it. And he initiated him. He made him a devotee. Ananta Shanti, I think his name was. And then Prabhupada had to leave after a few days, and he was left, and he didn't have any books, you know, but he had the knowledge, and he started preaching. And that was the foundation, that seed planted was the foundation of Krishna consciousness in Russia, which today has thousands and thousands of devotees. And there's so many heroic stories of devotees preaching, getting arrested, and all these different things. Copying books by hand, you know, and reading them underground. You know the history, how the Soviet Union. So that one association with the sadhu, you know, with Prabhupada, planted that seed, and the whole thing, the plant grew luxuriously. So that's what the meaning of this verse is. Now, then Prabhupada talks about Mahatma. Mahatma and sadhu are basically the same. And he quotes a verse here from the 5th canto, famous verse. Mahatsevam, the word dvara is there. Mahatsevam dvaramahu vimuktes, tamo dvaram yoshitang sangi sangam. So what the first line says, serving a Mahatma. Because actually, if you associate with a real Mahatma or sadhu, the first service that you do, and the most important, is to just hear. And so that service of Mahatma, let's just speak of practical service, opens the door of liberation, just like this verse. Dwaram, dwara is the door, ahu vimuktes. It is said that vimukti, the doors to liberation are opened by service to a Mahatma. And just conversely, tamo dwaram yoshitang sangi sangam. So another door, you can imagine a door to darkness and hellish life, is opened by association with materialists. Now the words used here, Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Yoshitam Sangi means those who are too attached to sex, to associate with the opposite sex. Associating with them, they're called Yoshitam Sangi. A Sangi is a person who associates. Sangha is the association, you see. So Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Now, as in the Sadhu Sangashika, which we'll read in it, then the next question is, well, who are the sadhus? And so he gives a 2-line explanation of the sadhus. Yoshitam Sangi Sangam, Mahantas te samachitta prashanta vimanyavak suridak sadhavoye. Is that it? No. Mahatsevam dvaramahi vimuktes, tumo dvaram yoshitam sangi sangam. Mahantas te samachitta prashanta vimanyavak suridak sadhavo. I think it is sadhavoye. So, the first thing, Mahanta and Mahatma are synonymous. Mahanta means a great soul, Mahatma means samachitta, very equipoised in mind. In other words, tolerant of not only gross things like some physical attack, but also insults or allurements for pleasure. They're samachitta, means they're very equipoised in mind. They're living the internal life. They're always in contact with Krishna inside, and that protects him from all of these things outside, both positive and negative. So that's Mahanta Samachitta Prashanta, and therefore they're very peaceful persons. The definition of peace in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is to be free of material desires. That's the thing. If you're only desiring service to Krishna, then you emanate peace. There's a nice verse in the CC. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. So the devotees are peaceful because they don't desire anything material. Nishkama. Kama means strong material desire or sex desire. And then he says, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. Now, in this case, a kami, that doesn't mean a communist, but it means someone who desires something strong. So there's three qualities. There's basically four categories of people in this world. The bhukti kamis, mukti kamis, siddhi kamis, and the devotees, the bhaktas. So the bhukti kamis are 99.99%. People who want various kinds of gross and subtle material pleasures, sense gratification. A million different things. There's food, there's music, there's people, there's dogs, there's a million different things. That's called bhukti kamis. But you can never be peaceful, not for any length of time. Because whatever you enjoy, soon the enjoyment fades. This is like a peak experience, you know. And then you have to do it again, and then before long you feel the bad effects of it, you know. And it's said in the Gita, it never is satisfied, it burns like fire, this kama. So nobody out there is peaceful. They're trying to enjoy the material energy isn't cooperating, and there's all anxiety and hankering and lamenting. You're hankering for what you don't have. If you get it, you enjoy it for a little while, then you lament because you can't enjoy it anymore, or someone took it away, or it's only the Galaxy 7, now the Galaxy 8 is out, or you know, a million different things. The whole Maya Devi, through her agents, you know, the materialistic capitalists, their whole idea is to implant desires in you for things that you don't need, you know. So you'll never be satisfied, and you'll have to borrow money in order to buy them. Once they got you under debt, you know, this is the debt peonage, it's called. So devotees are free of that. We're satisfied with little things. It's like the wardrobe here, you know. I have to confess, I got all my kurtas stolen, my shirts stolen at the laundromat one day. So I lamented for about 10 minutes. And then I started, well, okay, I still have a few left, and gradually people have been giving me things and they're coming back. But it wasn't like, I didn't lose like my $1,000 coat, you know, I didn't, they're only worth, I had about 20 kurtas, and they're worth a total of, you know, maybe $85, $90 total, you know, big deal. So the idea is that if you don't, you know, when you have nothing to lose. Didn't there was a great sage who said that? Who said that? I think it was Dylan. Did Dylan say that? Right? Bob Dylan. So that's one of our mottos. When you have nothing material, you have nothing to lose, and you're not attached to it, and you can actually be peaceful. So it says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama. They don't want anything material. Ataeva Shanta. Peaceful. But the bhukti kamis, those who want everything material, can never be peaceful. But then there's also the mukti kamis. Now here it says opening door to liberation, but as I mentioned, liberation is a preliminary, you know, motivation for us, not our final. But some people think that's the final goal, liberation. But you can't have liberation without bhakti. There's no real liberation, because it's unnatural to not have any desires or any attachments. Prabhu explained that people don't have children, they'll transfer to dogs, you know. There's one fellow here, I say Hare Krishna to him, you know, in the back. He has 3 dogs he takes out for a walk. You may have seen him, you know, every day. Well, he's got an infection, you know, they've got to go out, they've got to be fed, you know, there's his companions. But that's tragedy, really, because if you're really into dogs or cats, you become a cat or dog due to your consciousness. So I'll be free of all attachments, no attachments. I'll just be, you know, a consciousness with no variety. The white light, Brahman Jyoti it's called. I'll merge into that, and no more birth, no more death. It's the pleasure of absolutely no pain. Now, since material life means more or less suffering, when you can relieve that suffering, that's a kind of happiness. But it's not positive. It's not in the positive side. It's just relief. It's negative. And because we're living entities, we're persons ultimately. You can't destroy that. All of us are persons forever. You want some interaction. You want some engagement for your senses. And so, but you don't believe in Krishna or anything. So you have to come back down here and do something, you know, open a hospital or something like that. Which is good, but it's not liberation. So the mukti kamis also cannot be peaceful because the quality of their liberation is always not quite there. And then there's the city commies. There's yogis who can develop cities, walking on water, astral travel, mind reading, shrinking down to, like atomic size. It's possible. These are material powers. So I thought, that sounds really interesting. Let me get those. But that's also material ultimately. And it'll keep you here. So they can't be peaceful either, because there's always some more powerful yogi, or they become envious of the devotees.